This is Artful Discourse, your weekly escape into the vibrant world of creativity, culture, and intellectual exploration. I'm your host, Benjamin Kirk, and I invite you to join me on a journey through the rich tapestry of human thought and the beating heart of artistic expression at Fresno State's College of Arts and Humanities. All right, get ready, everyone. Day of Giving is Wednesday, March 26th. While most of us don't have the means to get buildings named after us or establish endowed scholarships, we recognize that giving back is important and it feels good. Well, what if you and hundreds of others can contribute a small amount but pool your money to do something great? That's what Day of Giving is all about. With a minimum donation of just $10, you can support students in your favorite area of Fresno State. Perhaps an area that impacted your life or an area that just inspires you, and help enable student success in that area. On Day of Giving, when you give to the College of Arts and Humanities, you are giving to the Dean's Council Annual Fund. And to talk more about what this fund does, we are joined by Dr. Honora Chapman, Dean of the College of Arts and Humanities. Dr. Chapman, welcome.
Thanks, Ben.
So, Dr. Chapman, I understand that the Dean's Council Fund is actually split in half. Can you tell us a little bit about how the fund is set up and how it works?
I shall. The fund came about because Art Dyson, who is an architect, was sitting on our advisory board, and he had been at Taliesin as a dean. He said, this is the way to raise money from your supporters because it allows the dean to provide funds to both faculty and staff and then students separately. And if you split them in two, you're able to have the most impact. And that is the way this particular fund was constructed at Fresno State. And we had two advisory board members, Bob Hirth and Ray Dumanian, who took the baton and ran with it. And they created this basically a mechanism for having the most direct impact upon students as well as faculty and staff in their immediate needs in order to reach their long-term goals.
And so from what I understand, half of the fund goes directly to student scholarships. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then the other half is discretionary. And so that could be immediate needs for students, for faculty, or for staff.
Correct. And therefore, half the fund is only students, and the other half can be split amongst students, faculty, staff, needs of a combo of those as well. So it's really flexible in that regard. But the scholarships piece for students is on one side. And by scholarships, we don't mean strictly run through the scholarship office scholarships, but more awards. Yeah. Awards for our students of distinction, awards for the two Dean's medalists every year, awards for at least a dozen arts and humanities honor scholars every year. They are given awards, and even awards for students within each department in the College of Arts and Humanities. Each year, we provide yet another award just for them. And that particular award is meant to be for those who haven't quite necessarily gotten a named scholarship in an endowment account because there's so many great students to choose from, but they were so good. And so the department sends their name forward for the Dean's Council scholarship to represent their department. So we really have a wide variety of ways that we award the monies just to students alone.
All right, so let's break it down a little bit. Well, let's start with the scholarship side. So approximately how many scholarships are awarded each year?
Great question. 16 students of distinction alone, plus the dozen or so. So you're up to 28 at least, and then you add in the 9 departments and schools, and you end up with 37 at least a year are definitely going out in the name of scholarship,
right,
from the Dean's Council. And yet other awards as well go to students from the discretionary fund.
All right, so here's what a couple of the Dean's Council Scholarship recipients have said. Celeste Jones, a multimedia artist and media communications and journalism major, she said, quote, I am honored to be a recipient of the Dean's Council Scholarship. Beyond providing critical financial support, it inspires me to continue pursuing my studies with dedication and to focus on my writing my honors thesis. This scholarship is a significant boost to my academic journey and creative ambitions. Faith Van Hoven, a philosophy major, and she's actually the current ASI president. So just
Indeed.
a phenomenal student all the way around and doing some great work on campus. She said the Dean's Council funds are critical to helping take off a part of the financial burden that tuition brings. With the tuition increases this year is even more of a burden, and that is why I'm so thankful for receiving the scholarship. And that, tuition costs are rising, and by kind of relieving this burden, it helps students flourish and thrive.
Absolutely. It can be the difference between continuing on or stopping out. It can inspire students. The other thing is that it can inspire students to feel valorized in a different way because they've been singled out for an honor and they feel so special that they're motivated, as Celeste and Faith attest, to doing even better work in the coming year with less stress about having more debt when they graduate. Because financial aid, you don't get a complete package of grants that cover all the bills. Inevitably, most of our students have loans, and therefore this cuts into the loan burden that they face post-graduation. In the case of each of these students, whom I know personally, Celeste is a remarkable artist, multimedia artist in MCJ who has conceived a beautiful honors project called Dear Andy. And it is about her and a friend who have basically bonded through their shared experience growing up in their hometown and who feel marginalized due to their identities. And she's shooting a film of them in Monterey, and it's the most beautiful footage so far that I have seen that demonstrates that you can have a found family and find not only bonding over that friendship, but hope for how to navigate adult life because you have found a kindred spirit, and it's absolutely lovely. Celeste is a perfect example of an honors student who is making something that is deeply personal, but will resonate with a far wider audience who will enjoy seeing it once it is completed this spring. Faith Van Hoven is a marvel. She was our ASI senator last year.
Mm-hmm.
This year, she is the ASI president, which is a huge responsibility. And she understands the power of receiving this kind of award for any student on campus. And she is so honored to have it herself because school is not free for the ASI president. She has to work incredibly hard. She has bills to pay. And Dean's Council allows her to do her phenomenal work as a leader.
So when the audience, give to the College of Arts and Humanities during Day of Giving, you're essentially pooling your money to support students like these through the Dean's Council scholarships. So, Dr. Chapman, let's now talk about kind of the discretionary side of things. Looking at the list I have in the past year, the Dean's Council has assisted a few students with travel funds, and I'd like to highlight one of those students' trips. And it's actually somebody we talked to on this program a few months back, Morgan Poulter, who went all the way to Oxford University in England to present at the Oxford Animal Ethics Summer School, which is an international conference that happened in August last year. I talked to Morgan about her trip here on Artful Discourse, and it was really a remarkable experience for her. This is a Fresno State undergraduate student. She's a junior, so she's not even graduating this year. She did this as a junior, presenting at the world's top university according to U.S. News and World Report. I mean, the top in the world.
And leading off.
Imagine
the bravery. This was Morgan's first ever conference presentation at Oxford. I wrote to her afterwards and said, I don't know anybody, in fact, who has made their first conference presentation at Oxford. That is phenomenal. And she, of course, hit the ball out of the park. Everybody loved her talk about animal ethics. She had done the paper with Dr. Howard in a course, and Dr. Howard, being the endowed chair in Jain and Hindu Dharma, of course, promotes nonviolence, ahimsa, as a way of life. And the students learn this in the classroom. And then they deepened their research, but Morgan took it to the next level. It was so impressive that Dr. Howard decided, I need Morgan to come with me to Oxford. That shows you the transformative power of Dean's Council funding, because with every gift that's made on Day of Giving or year round to Dean's Council, you're allowing the Morgans to do something that is not only extraordinary for her, but even for any student in this country, to be able to go to Oxford and deliver a paper to an esteemed body of scholars and teach them something
Yeah.
as an undergraduate who hasn't even joined an honors program yet. I mean, this is what's so amazing. And Morgan, brave and thoughtful and a philosopher, is able to do this thanks to Dean's Council, because our students do not have extra money to travel.
Right.
That's a given. Every dollar that is given to Dean's Council can be applied to things like trips for conferences, whether that is students or faculty. It makes all the difference. For the faculty, especially, they are required by their job description to go to conferences on a regular basis in order to earn tenure and promotion,
Right.
but they do not receive enough money in professional development to cover travel, especially nowadays. It has far outstripped what we are able to provide on an annual basis. One trip alone to the East Coast costs double what we're able to provide. So that's where Dean's Council
Yeah.
steps in and helps probationary faculty who earn less be able to go. And it's not just tenure track or tenured faculty. We also have an esteemed lecturer of Japanese who will be going, Miho Schweitzer, to Princeton University this coming summer to describe her work in Japanese pedagogy to experts at Princeton. Dean's Council is helping support her trip too. So our effort is to meet the needs of people, to spread the money as widely as possible so that we can actually make the greatest impact upon the faculty and the staff. And I should mention about staff, they too receive extra funding if they have a professional development opportunity. There was one several years ago, a staff member in art and design and art history, Susan Mitchell, went all the way to the East Coast for a very serious conference on safety in the field of art. She came back and applied it brilliantly to all of our studio artists in our department, helping raise the bar on how we deliver art education as safely as possible.
So there's a few things I want to highlight, because you really just talked about a whole lot of things all at once. So I want to back up a little bit. And first of all, with Morgan, I want to highlight that it's a little bit already a little bit unusual for undergraduates to be presenting at conferences to begin with.
It is, especially at conferences that are attended by professors. It's one thing to be at a student conference, but Morgan was with professional scholars of animal ethics,
Yeah.
presenting on a panel, the first panel
Right.
about animal ethics at Oxford University. That is unheard of.
And from what I was told in our conversation before was from Dr. Howard, had said that they had actually requested that they be put up first because they loved their presentation so much. They wanted it to set the tone for the rest of the conference.
And
That's why they were first.
And what does that say about
Right.
Fresno State and the type of engaged education that we provide? It's real. It is not just theory. It is thought through in a compassionate way.
So when students work hard and are able to have these opportunities that aren't really normal opportunities, these opportunities do not come up all the time. And so there is no funding generally for that. This is where the Dean's Council comes in.
That's correct, because no one could predict
Right.
that Morgan would be invited by Oxford to give this talk a year before, correct?
Right.
This paper didn't exist yet in its form it was delivered in. Perhaps she was thinking about it, but no one wrote an IRA, an instructionally related activity grant, funded by ASI. Therefore, Dean's Council was the only way to pay for it, because scholarships, IRA, everything has to be applied for a year in advance. Whereas this is in real time. If I hear about it on a Tuesday, I can reply on a Tuesday, yes, we can give you X number of dollars for your trip, for your computer equipment that you desperately need to finish your project, for other needs, emergency needs, textbooks when a student cannot afford a textbook. I can step in and help.
Yeah.
If it will get them to the finish line, we will do everything in our power.
I've even seen funds for graduation, which, the graduation fees isn't even that much, but we've seen students who have said, oh my God, I just can't afford it.
They literally cannot pay rent, buy food, and afford the graduation fee. We will pay the graduation fee for them.
Yeah.
And that, again, Dean's Council, there is no other fund in the College of Arts and Humanities or on campus that I can tap from besides Dean's Council. And the thing that makes arts and humanities so distinctive is that our community members have supported us so generously that the dean has this robust fund to draw from that many other deans simply do not have.
Yeah.
And that is why our artists and humanists are so fortunate, because they have Dean's Council to draw from. That's why Day of Giving matters so much, because it directly can feed into Dean's Council if that's the fund identified by the donor. There are many others to give to that are very worthy causes, but Dean's Council has the broadest impact because it can go to anybody in the College of Arts and Humanities.
The last thing I want to unpack is the giving of funds to faculty and staff for conferences, professional development, and other things that they aren't able to cover as much as especially these days, with budget cuts and everything else. But can you describe a little bit more about how sending faculty to a conference to either present or attend, or sending staff off, how does that help students?
Directly, because when the faculty go away to deliver a conference paper they've been thinking about for many years and they finally get it in the right form to deliver at that conference, they are delivering it in the name of Fresno State. What does that do for our students? Scholars from around the country see a Fresno State professor at a national conference delivering a very fine paper, and they say, wow, that's Fresno State. When our students are getting ready to apply to graduate school, they remember the fact that they talked to our professor at that conference, that professor was highly intelligent and really represented the best of the valley. And therefore, when our students apply to graduate school, that networking that happens at conferences face to face is essential for the success of our students in the future applying to graduate school. Furthermore, when the professor goes to the conference and delivers the paper on a panel listening to other scholars, they inevitably bring it back to the classroom. So right after they come back from the conference, I remember walking in the classroom and immediately saying, I would have a special day in the syllabus for it. This is what I learned. And I would describe all the papers I heard, how it applied to the class I was teaching then and there to them, and letting them understand how the field was moving forward right now in real time.
And I think that's important, is that our faculty are not only keeping up with what's the latest in their fields, they are leaders in their fields.
They are leaders, and they come back and they deliver the cutting edge information and thoughts that they have acquired at that conference right away to their students. You know that every professor walking into a classroom after having this kind of experience will say something related to where they've been. We can't help it. We're so excited by what we've seen and heard. We can't help but share, how did your paper go, Dr. So and so? Who did you meet? All of these come through in the conversation with the students.
And what other papers they saw presented from other thought leaders.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it helps our students envision, what will my final paper be in this course? Because it will alter the direction of the conversation as scholars. That's, the point of a conference is to not go to a 3-day confab. It's to share and acquire knowledge and approaches that matter deeply in a given discipline, bring them back and apply them immediately in the classroom, the studio, the stage, wherever it's happening in our education, and letting our students know that what they're doing is important, that their thoughts, their productivity matters. And Morgan's the perfect example of someone who benefited from Dr. Howard going to her own conferences before, coming back excitingly, sharing it with her students, and Morgan being inspired and thinking, I can do that. Think about that,
Yeah.
the power of that, the exemplary work of our faculty inspires our students to do more as undergraduates and as graduate students than they ever thought possible. And in speaking to students of distinction this past week, who will indeed get an award from Dean's Council, they talked about that, how their professors inspired them.
Yeah. So we've been talking, with the discretionary funds, we've talked a lot about travel for faculty and students and staff, and how the impact that has on education. But I think it's important with the discretionary side to kind of highlight some things, because while they may not be on the list for this year, I want to highlight some things in previous years we've had. Art supplies,
Absolutely.
technology needs,
Yes.
and funding research.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Everything that you can imagine happening in relation to the curriculum and scholarly and creative activities has been funded through Dean's Council over time. And the awards are not necessarily large because
Right.
the fund is limited, but it makes all the difference.
Right. But that's the whole thing. Sometimes these are little amounts that are a struggle for our faculty or our students or staff to pay on their own.
Absolutely.
But they have a huge impact on the outcomes.
Without a doubt. And people say afterwards, they're so grateful for that extra leg up. It made all the difference. It really does, not exaggerating. It's why they can do what they're doing now.
For a few years, you've been Dean of the College of Arts and Humanities now, and you've had the opportunity to use these discretionary funds. Do you have a favorite, or do you have something that really stands out as something? I know that's a loaded question, but do you have something that stands out to you that where you felt it really impacted, especially a student? I'm really more interested in the students.
Yes, the student. I would say that over the past 6 years of being Dean of the College of Arts and Humanities, that the one that hit me most close to home was a graduate student in art named Sarah Teller.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah came after her professor, Dr. Keith Jordan, emailed me to tell me that Sarah Teller, MA student in art, needed funds, if it were possible from Dean's Council, to travel for her research. So instead of just writing an email back, I said, I need to meet with her
Mm-hmm.
and find out what's going on. Because there are other ways to get funding on campus. I met with Sarah and I said, there might be money with the graduate dean, but tell me why you want to go. And she explained this amazing tiny figurine in the National Museum in Copenhagen in Denmark that she'd been working on that she believes scholars simply had misinterpreted. And for me personally, this totally resonated because in another museum in Copenhagen, I did a bucket list trip in 2014 for the same thing, to go see a statue bust in the Nye Carlsberg Glyptotek, because I knew it had been interpreted incorrectly. I had to see it with my own eye and really look at it from all vantage points. That's why Sarah needed to go. When I heard her story, I knew, yes, bucket lists must be funded. And she went to Copenhagen and it changed everything. She met with the head curator of this national museum. She was able to see the figurine herself that's normally blocked off with lucite or glass in the museum. She was able to spend time with it, and that made it so real for her. Her scholarship was amplified, her paper was better. She wrote a winning thesis, unbelievable thesis.
And we actually interviewed her on this show. And so you
Yes.
can go back through our podcast archives and look for Sarah Teller and hear that interview. And I'll put a link to that in our show notes as well. One of my favorite stories as well.
It really it resonated personally. I was also worried about her going in January when it's freezing cold.
Yeah.
And there's that human touch too that is such a delight as a dean, is getting to talk to students and figure out what they really need,
Yeah.
because it's vital that they have enough money to dress warmly. Let's face it, you can't go to Copenhagen in January without a good jacket.
Right.
This is why these awards matter.
So is there anything I missed? Anything you'd like to add?
I would like to conclude with my gratitude to anyone who has ever given any gift, small or large, to Dean's Council, because I know from the experience of having the joy of giving Dean's Council awards that they make such a difference in the lives of every single recipient. No one asks unless they need it. Not a single person comes without a serious need. It makes all the difference in the excellent education we provide at Fresno State. We are the best purveyor of arts and humanities in Central California, within 125 miles or more in every direction of Fresno. This is it for arts and humanities, and Dean's Council is the extra lift that allows our students, our faculty, and staff to do their best work.
So while most of us don't have the money to create grand scholarship endowments or fund student programs, by giving to the College of Arts and Humanities on Day of Giving, you are pooling your money with others, giving to the Dean's Council Annual Fund, and that directly helps students with scholarships and other needs. To help students, you just need a donation, $10 or more. Minimum donation is $10. That's it.
Of course, it sure is.
Of course, if you want to give more, you're more than welcome to, but it's all about just pooling that money together. So we appreciate every gift that comes in. Visit dayofgiving.fresnostate.edu, and that's midnight to midnight on Wednesday, March 26th, and we'll have a link in our show notes. And as Dr. Chapman said, thank you for joining us, and a huge, huge thank you to everyone who has ever donated to Day of Giving, and especially those who have given to the College of Arts and Humanities and the Dean's Council Annual Fund. It's really inspiring to see how this series of small gifts can have such a huge impact. Thank you, everybody. Artful Discourse is a production of the College of Arts and Humanities at California State University, Fresno. The Dean is Dr. Honora Chapman. This program is written, directed, and produced by me, Benjamin Kirk, the college's communication specialist. The theme song for Artful Discourse is Maiden Voyage by Fresno State music professor Benjamin Boone from his album, Joy. More information about his music can be found at benjaminboone.com. Special thanks to KFSR and FSR Underground General Manager Julie Lindahl for making this show possible. You can learn more about the College of Arts and Humanities and find an archive of our shows at our website, cah.fresnostate.edu, or on our blog, fresnostatecah.com.